I'm very honored to be here, not just for myself and my partners at B Lab, but also for the 750 B corporations all around the world. It's a really pleasure to be with you. And so this is the key slide that sort of shares our worldview for where we think we are today in history. We know that capitalism isn't the only system, and we also know that the economy and capitalism isn't the only part of what makes up society. However, we would argue that it's, for better or for worse, the most central system that governs right now or is driving right now everything else. For an example, in the US, business represents 3/4 of our GDP and probably a greater percentage of our waking conscious hours. We're either working 8, 10, or 12 hours a day, and then we're spending some portion of the rest figuring out how to spend or invest that money to make sure that we have food for our kids, a college education for them, and maybe a retirement. And so most of our conscious life is spent in the marketplace. And so if we don't figure out how to bring purpose into commerce, into the marketplace, into capitalism, it's going to be very hard for us to lead purpose-driven lives. So in American capitalism, there's, for any of you technologists in the room, there's sort of the operating system, right? There's a very simple, beautiful operating system of American capitalism, which means it's only got one rule. And that one rule governs all behavior for all companies in all industries, whether it's a 5-person company or a 50,000-person company, whether it's a venture capital firm or a furniture maker or a construction company. It's all governed by one rule, which is that the only duty of the company is to maximize value to the shareholders. Unfortunately, that one rule has some serious unintended consequences, which are just the result of the basic mathematics of maximizing return on investment. In order to maximize return on investment, you'll take the numerator and you try to make it as big as possible, your profit. And you do that by shifting as many costs as possible off of your P&L. Whether that means that you're going to shrink your labor costs by moving production from a high-wage country to a low-wage country, or you're going to reduce your costs by only doing that which is legally obligated to mitigate environmental harm, and otherwise do whatever else, because it's legal, so why shouldn't I do that? And oh, by the way, I'm legally obligated to do that. If I don't do that, I'll get sued. Again, in the US, which is a very litigious, to a fault country, you get sued. And so that's maximizing the numerator. And the other way to make that number go up is you shrink the denominator. And the way that you do that is to make sure that there are as few people that benefit from the success of your business as possible. That's maximizing return on investment. That's just the game that we've been asked to play. So that means if your goal is a sustainable economy, where you're thinking about future generations from an environmental perspective, or an inclusive economy, where you're trying to create wealth for as many people as possible so they can participate and reach their full potential as human beings, then the current operating system isn't really set up to maximize our success. And so what we're trying to do is adopt a very market-based approach and just create a different alternative for people to choose to opt into. And so and that's what the B Corporation is. It's just a different type of corporation that people can choose to start or invest in or work for or buy from. And it's our supposition that that new type of corporation is practicing a 21st century form of capitalism, which is not trying to maximize shareholder value. It's trying to maximize the shared value for all of the different stakeholders of the business. Workers, suppliers, community, environment, to name a few. Some examples of folks that are doing that. Namaste Solar. You probably recognize a couple of those gentlemen standing there on the rooftop. You might not recognize the more important person on the left. His name is Blake Jones, and he's the CEO of Namaste Solar. And he created a solar company, the largest and fastest growing solar company in Colorado. And not only is he delivering environmental benefits to homes and businesses across the state, but also his workers are deriving benefits because it's a worker-owned cooperative. Or Nate Robinson, from Jehudi Kalimo. Nate is a South African who developed a business that does asset-based financing and training for smallholder farmers in rural Kenya. He's creating greater economic opportunity by improving yields for smallholder farmers that are living under $1 a day, often doubling their family income, which is the difference between their kids going to school or not going to school. Another one, Pedro's company, Guayaki. You see not only are they creating right livelihoods for the indigenous peoples in the Iguazu area, but they're also, with the packaging, which is all biodegradable, you can see on the lower left, what looks like soil there is soil. Even though someone threw away a Guayaki pouch about 120 days ago, it's completely biodegraded back into the soil as a very intentional way to approach everything about their business, not just where they sourced the product from, but also how they package it and deliver it, and also how they consume their energy in the US. So their Sebastopol, California offices are entirely solar powered. So all of these entrepreneurs who in a different generation might have gone on to start a nonprofit organization or get involved in politics have all independently decided they're going to use business as the tool to create their change. That's a fundamental shift in how entrepreneurs are thinking about what they can do, what the tools that are available to them. The big problem, though, for this big trend is that the capitalist system wasn't designed to do this. Small coding issue. And there's two major issues here. The first is that there are no standards that help us tell the difference between a good company and just good marketing. And so what we did is that the three co-founders of B Lab, we created a nonprofit whose mission is to use the power of business for good. And so we try to do three things to support those entrepreneurs, like the ones you've met earlier today. One is we try to shine a light on those entrepreneurs that are doing the best job at using business as a force for good, and we call them B corporations, because they're competing to be the best for the world. The second thing, we try to drive capital to those entrepreneurs so the best ones of them can scale their impact as they scale their businesses. And then we try to remove legal impediments, like the one we just talked about, to enable them to do that effectively and have their businesses be built to last. And so the fundamental insight here was that we were moving from an era that was focused on good products to an era that was going to be focused on good companies. We started certifying B Corps, the proverbial good companies, about 6 years ago. There are now about 750 certified B corporations across 60 or 70 different industries. And increasingly, as B Corps have become more sort of familiar, as people become more aware of this in the US, there's been an interest in entrepreneurs like Gonzalo from Triciclos and Alex and the Semillas from Guayaki and a bunch of others who have said, I want to be a part of that tribe. And so now there are B Corps from almost 30 countries, from Mongolia to Tanzania to Argentina. And it's the fastest growing part of the B Corp movement. And that growth is being led right here in South America by Sistema B. As Virginia said, there are about 50 certified B Corps, or Empresas B, here in South America. They're just like regular businesses. They like to make money. They pay their people well, as we've seen before. But they do three things differently. They meet higher standards of performance, transparency, and accountability. So they're giving you as a consumer, or you as a potential worker, or you as a potential investor, unprecedented information about their company that you can't get for any other company to help you make a more informed decision about where you want to work, where you want to invest, or what you want to buy. And so our theory of change is that it's this global movement of entrepreneurs, investors, consumers with this one unifying goal is being led by this community of certified B corporations. It's the fact that you can see them all in one place, that they've got one name that gives them market power to consumers, that gives them attractive power to investors and attractive power to consumers, and persuasive power to legislators. And so what I'd leave you with is one of the other things that's happening with the B Corp community that they're launching next January for the first time is they're beginning to expand the aperture of their lens from building just a community of companies to building a movement of people that want to use business as a force for good under the rallying cry, be the change. So I used to be in the athletic footwear industry, in the basketball business, and we used to compete against a very small company called Nike that has these little swooshes on the sides of their shoes and had a slogan that some of you may remember. There you go, in every language. Just do it. Just do it was one of the most powerful calls to action for a generation. Mostly about realizing your individual best. We look at be the change as one of the most powerful calls to action for the we generation, for a generation that's not looking to realize their personal best, independent of helping us all reach our collective best. And so next January, those 750, by that time close to 1,000 companies, are all going to unite for one, to kick off what we think will be a multi-year marketing campaign to invite people from all around the world to be the change and use business as a force for good. And so whether you're here in Buenos Aires or you're coming from somewhere far away, whether you're a student or an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur or an investor, whatever hat you're wearing, hopefully when you see that call to action, you can answer the call and join us in using business as a force for good.